Retreat Series, Dhamma Talk number 66. Today we are going to discuss the part 4 of the Dhamma Vipassana, or mindfulness of Dhamma, or contemplation of Dhamma, according to Satipatthana Vipassana meditation practice. Okay, this part 4 is the last of the Dhamma Vipassana, and it is about contemplation on Four Noble Truths. In Pali it is called Ariya Sessa. Okay. Ariya means noble person. Sessa means truth. Okay. It's about the Four Noble Truths. As we are talking for a wider audience online, some of you may be familiar with what Four Noble Truths is, and some would not be as familiar. So we are going to approach more on explanation on a theoretical aspect as well, quite a bit in fact. So these noble ones, Ariya, okay, those are the people who have seen these truths, these four truths. They have seen, which means they have experienced, and they are free from all form of mental defilements. That is Ariya. So these Four Noble Truths, the first one is called in Pali Dukkha Cessation, the noble truth of the suffering. Second one is Samudaya Cessation. In English, the noble truth of the origin of suffering. The third one is Dukkha Nirodha Cessation, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. The fourth one is Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Padipada, the path leading to the cessation of suffering, most commonly known as the Noble Eightfold Path, or the middle way. Those are the Four Noble Truths. So let's see the first one, the noble truth of suffering, Dukkha Cessation. Dukkha, it's in English translated and most commonly used as suffering, or some people use unsatisfactoriness. Dukkha means suffering or unsatisfactoriness. But the precise meaning covers a lot wider than those words can convey. Okay? And dukkha means anything that is disgusting, and it doesn't have any happiness without happiness, and it has no substance In fact, it is hollow. That's what it means by no substance. And it is impermanence. That is the meaning of dukkha. Anything that is disgusting, without happiness, has no substance and impermanent. That is the complete wider range, the meaning that covers the word dukkha. And as we all know, whenever we approach anything physical or mental, situation, condition, object, from the Buddha taught us to approach in 4 different ways. Whenever it is possible, it's always possible, of course, and also whenever it is beneficial, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, based on beneficiality of the content of the subject you are discussing. So what is the characteristics of dukkha? In one word, it's called affliction. Affliction. Anything that afflicts. The nature of affliction is the characteristics. Misery. If you see misery, that's a sign, that's a characteristic. That is suffering. Okay? Affliction or misery. And function. What is the function of this dukkha? That function of dukkha is to burn. Okay? Anybody who's in contact with suffering is, you will have a feeling, a sensation of burning. It burns. Or it will make you miserable. That's the function of dukkha. Manifestation. Manifestation is, say, coming into beings. Coming into beings. That's more precise. Loosely put, you'll be born again and again and again. Coming into beings. And also an occurrence. You will occur again, and you will occur again, and occur again. That's a manifestation. So that is, if you approach that way, you will understand what dukkha is. Of course, there's the cause, approximate cause, but we will deal it because the next truth is the cause, so we will skip here. Dukkha, Buddha put it in 3 categories. There are 3 types of dukkha. The first one is called dukkha. It's translated as intrinsic suffering. Dukkha. So what are they, if you want to specifically point out? Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Death and sorrow is suffering. Lamentation, pain, grief, excessive distress. Those are suffering. Associated with peoples or object that you don't like is suffering. To be dissociated from things and people that you love and like, that is suffering. Not getting what one cannot get or one cannot obtain is suffering. These are like quite very obvious. We all know, we can all agree upon. We can all agree upon. The obvious. These are obvious pain, obvious suffering, pain and suffering. So we don't really need to expand a lot. We all understand what they are. And in fact, some teacher might say, this is not the suffering, Dukkha, what the Buddhas meant. In a way it is right, and in a way one can disagree. Because it is written in the scripture, all these things are suffering, and many more, of course, going to come. So the Buddha wouldn't just simply put it that way if it is not what he meant. These things, what we just said, itemized, they are, in a way, it is very useful tools. These sufferings are very useful tools. Let's look at in our lives. And if you don't have it, the people around you, you might know. We go about every day. Everything is normal. What we call normal. A little bit of stress, a little bit of disagreement. We don't call it suffering. No, that's normal of life. Norms of life. Even though there's a lot of disagreement and things like that. Dissatisfaction. But we all are, one time or the other, we come into great distress, great difficulty, under great pressure, a certain situation. And at that time, we really feel that stress, that pain, that pressure. Around that time, we all crawled with our head into the sand. We feel like we want to run away. It is overpowering. That's what these obvious suffering makes you. And when it comes to that, it comes to a point that you are really under great distress. What happened? We look for a way out. We look for a way out. Okay. Some people, they go into alcohol, alcoholics, drugs addicts. These are the way out, easy to get. Become addicts. Or some people go into great depression, crawl up, never come out. And some people see counselors, psychiatrists, regularly throughout, some people who can afford it. These are the pressure of these great distress, the great obvious suffering. Everybody has a different threshold level, but whenever our thresholds are met, we crumble at that time. Those are different ways of escape. But there are some people around those times, suddenly, there's nothing I can do. And then they turn around and look into the direction of spirituality. Based on your belief, you might go more into God, or this or that, based on your belief system, religious system, whatever the affinity you have. Spirituality. That is the time we really look into it, and some people look into it, go into it, practiced it, behave accordingly as instructed, and they feel relieved. And after that, modern day word is they become a new man, a new person, born again, that kind of thing. So this Dukkha has a significance of change of life. It is very powerful to put you in a different perspective, to put in a different track. And for the Buddhists, of course, and some other religion as well, meditation. For the Buddhists is meditation. That is when one really direct the effort to look into that meditation. Will this help? And then you practice, you live accordingly, And then suddenly you find the benefit, because this is the first hand. You are under great distress, and as you follow it, because there's a great pressure, that stress, that pain, so you really work on it. And you can experience the result immediately in a very short span of time, because you put so much effort into it. And after that, you become a totally different person, a person with a different outlook to life, different attitude to life. That's why this dukkha has a great value to a large number of people. So don't think this is useless. In a way, if you know how to use it, it is great. So these are the obvious ones. And of course there is another one in one line. The Buddha said, okay, the 5 aggregates is suffering. 5 aggregates is what? Matter, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. In other words, matter is, and the consciousness, mind and matter, it is animate as well as inanimate. Everything is suffering. That line is a lot deeper, so let's go a little farther to see it. At this moment, just keep it as that. So this is dukkha. Second one is called viparinama dukkha. That's a Pali word. In English, the closest will be suffering due to or based on change. Suffering based on change. So what does it mean by suffering based on change? Because in our life, it's a big span, and even in a day or even within an hour, if you really observe and be careful, you will see your mood swing. Okay. Happy and suddenly not so happy. Happy, something dissatisfied. Happy, angry. Swing. Happy, sorrow. Just watch within an hour. If you are carefully watching, you will see your mood swing. That's a change. And it's changing all the time, but we are not quite aware of it. That is, if you are mindful. But in general, you can say mood swing means good mood, high mood means pleasant feeling. Bad moods mean unpleasant feeling. Pleasant feeling to unpleasant feeling, it change. Unpleasant feeling to pleasant feeling, it change. It's changing. That change of the feelings, vedana, that change of moods is viparinama dukkha. Just look at simple dramatized example. A little kid, let's say 2 years old, he or she didn't get what he wants, the food that he wants. No, I don't want this porridge. I don't want a porridge. I want toast and peanut butter. And then didn't get it. So what happened? Dissatisfied, scream, yell, cry out loud. Some kids can cry for half an hour straight out with the, on top of their lungs. And then finally the mother couldn't take it and just splash some peanut butter on the bread and give it. And suddenly the cry stopped. And then eat it and he was happy, smiling as if nothing has happened. That's how it changed. Unpleasant feeling can change directly into pleasant feeling. Let's say adults having a party, a birthday party. Everybody's happy, laughing, drinking, eating, and suddenly the phone rings. Pick up the phone, and then you hear somebody that you're very close to passed away, and suddenly the mood totally changed. That kind of change, the mood, pleasant feeling to unpleasant feeling to pleasant feeling can change in a nanoseconds. Those are the dramatized presentation. But if you are mindful, you will know that shift from pleasant to unpleasant mode, happy to sad mode, happy to angry mode is changing all the time. If you're mindful, you'll find out. So that is viparinama dukkha. Okay. Suffering based on change. Whenever there's a change from the condition that you like to condition that you don't like, there's a dissatisfaction, and so on. Condition that you like, and suddenly you lost it. There's another one. It's always that swing going on. So that is a second type of dukkha, suffering. They are all under, first one is dukkha, and this is called viparinama dukkha. And the third one is called sankhara dukkha, suffering due to formation. Suffering due to formation, sankhara dukkha. Sankhara dukkha is let's look at it this way. The whole world, animate and inanimate, physical or mental, everything, they are caused. All things in this universe are caused by something. So, in other words, anything that you pick up, you look at, you focus upon, that is a cause. Because of the cause, there will be an effect. But you are, at this moment, that object is a cause. Everything is causing something. Everything is causing something at all times. So, in other words, you can say both physical world and mental world are caused. Everything is caused. And all these things, everything, they have a beginning and the end. Beginning and the end. Arise and passed away. Beginning and the end. And all these things, everything, is oppressed by coming into being. Basically, simple word is arising. Oppressed by coming into being and then disappear. Coming into being and disappear. That system is oppressing all these physicality and mentality. Physical world and mental world. They come into being, they disappear. In other words, it's impermanent. All these things, everything in the world are caused, including neutral feeling, because we were talking about pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling in the viparinama dukkha. We didn't include neutral feeling, but in here, including neutral feeling, everything, things that are caused by other things, including neutral feeling, are sankhara dukkha, suffering due to formation. Everything in the world are caused, It has a beginning and an end. It is always oppressed by coming into being and disappear, and it is impermanent. And all these things are sankhara dukkha. We talk about, suffering due to formation. What does it mean? What does it mean is that what I just explained. All of these are sankhara dukkha. In other words, they are the reality of life. They are the facts of life. Reality of life, facts of life, always come back to us, living beings. But in general, it covers both physical universe and mental universe. And all these things are the facts of life, and that is called dukkha sissa. But this dukkha sissa, this sankhara dukkha, you cannot really comprehend by just thinking with logic and analytical word. You actually need or require, as a requisite, mindfulness insight meditation to truly penetrate and understand what it is. To understand sankhara dukkha, you need meditation, and you must penetrate, become skillful in meditation, penetrate into these natures, and only then you will accurately understand it, experiential understanding. Dukkha dukkha, the obvious one, we don't need any meditation, we know. But suffering due to change, that one is, if you are quite acutely mindful here and there, if you are observant, quite keen, you can understand it. The third one, you need meditation. But in the scripture, Buddha put all these things as dukkha, dukkha sissa. Okay. One must understand everything. So that is the first noble truth, the noble truth of suffering. The second one is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Pali word is called samudaya sissa. Samudaya sissa. So this samudaya is actually three words in combination. Sam, or S-A-M, Sam. By itself is, in here, it's combined with others. That's the meaning. And there's the aya, aya, A-Y-A. Aya is another word in there. It means caused. And then uda, or udaya, arising. So three words combined is called samudaya. Aya, udaya, and sam, samudaya. What this means is craving. Let's jump into the whole meaning. Craving arising together with ignorance, grasping, karma, and its some supporting factors cause dukkha. Craving arising with ignorance, grasping, karma, and some other supporting factors is the cause of dukkha. Craving in Pali is tanha. Ignorance is avijja. Grasping is upadana. And karma is karma. English language has adopted that word, karma. Or let's call it action or life actions. So, this craving, Tanha, arises together with avijja, the ignorance, upadana, the grasping, karma, the karma, and some other mental factors. They all combine. That's what Cham means. Combine, cause dukkha. But the Buddha singularly pointed out to the word craving, tanha. So you don't have to say the whole thing what I just explained. Tanha is the cause of dukkha. You see, in the first noble truth, we don't mention about the cause. The cause is this craving, because that cause itself is a noble truth, second noble truth. Tanha is the cause, dukkha, suffering, is the effect. Tanha, craving, is the cause, dukkha, suffering, is the effect. Cause and effect. Noble truth number 1 and number 2. Noble truth number 2 is the cause, noble truth number 1 is the effect. And what is the characteristics of this craving? Its characteristics originating. It's the beginning, it starts. Whatever it is, it always starts from that craving. When you crave something, there's a follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. One lead to the other, one lead to the other, cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect, nothing stops. But if you don't crave for that particular thing that is moving on, it just stops. It just cannot do anything. But if you have craving, it's the originating. That's the characteristics. Function. The function of craving is to prevent interruption. It wants to keep you on going and going and going uninterrupted. Its function is to prevent interruption or cause continuous originating, or continuously keep on rolling through the change of cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. That is the function. Manifestation. How does it manifest it? The proper word translated is called impediment. Impediment. Basically, it is the, if you have craving, it becomes an obstacle to grow and to progress. It becomes difficult to grow and to progress. That's impediment. Manifestation, it manifests as a impediment. It's difficult to grow, difficult to progress, to become better and better and better. It manifests as that. So in here, craving, there are also, dukkha has different categories. Craving has also many different little categories. Number 1 is craving for sense pleasure. We all know what sense pleasure is. The pleasures that you get through your eyes, through your ears, nose, tongue, touch, and thoughts. Imagination, a lot of imagination, fantasy land. These are craving for sense pleasure. And there's another craving. It stood by itself. Craving for better existence in a normal life. Okay. Let's say we have a job. We want a promotion. We want salary increase. We want a lot of benefits. We want great retirements. What it is, we want better and better and better. We want better existence. In this very own life, we want better existence, better status, better existence. Not only that, you have this life, well, fairly comfortable. Next life you want to be richer. Next life you want to be a millionaire, billionaire, trillionaire. Better existent. What is the million, billion, trillion? Better existent. Or next life you want to be a Deva, because you heard in the scripture, Devas, they don't have much suffering. They have constant pleasure. The better existent, that is another type of craving. Craving for better or eternal existence. Some people don't want to even die. Eternal existence. Better or eternal existence. That's good. Forever. That's second type. The third one is better for non-existence. No, craving for non-existent. It's coded as annihilation view. There are some people who believe this is the only life. I came from nowhere, I exist. Once I die, that's the end of it. That kind of view. You hold on, you craved, you grasp onto that view. That is the third kind of craving. Three kinds of cravings. So regardless, whichever craving it is, for sense pleasure or for better existence or eternal existence, for non-existent, regardless, whatever it is, any type of craving will give rise to a new rebirth. A new rebirth. Whether you want a new existence or you don't want a new existence doesn't matter. As long as you have craving, you will have a new rebirth. That new rebirth will always bound up with pleasure and lust and pain. That is the noble truth of suffering. Samudaya Sissa. And the third one is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Dukkha Nirodha Sissa. We all know Dukkha means what? Suffering. Nirodha, more precisely, Ni means no or not, negation, not absence. Rodha is a prison. In other words, no prison. Sissa is the truth. So basically, there is a no prison of dukkha. That noble truth is, there's no, in that truth, there's no presence of dukkha. Or in other words, you escape from the prison of dukkha. You were in the prison of dukkha before, now once you got to this third truth, you escaped from it. Or you put it in a different way, you escape from the rounds of rebirth. Or you escape from the condition. Escape from the rounds of rebirth, and it is a condition. It's a condition for the cessation of suffering. It's a condition where suffering ceased. And that one is popularly known in one word, Nibbana in Pali, Nirvana in Sanskrit. That's the third noble truth. And the characteristics of this Nibbana, the third noble truth, is peacefulness. Peacefulness. Or why peacefulness? Because you are free from kilesa. Kilesa is the one that is giving you all these problems. Without kilesa, you are totally in peace. That's the characteristics. And the function is neither to die or fade away. Bluntly put, it's a Nibbana exists, it is permanent. It has no beginning, no end. There's another Dhamma talk, if you remember. We talk just 1 hour Dhamma talk only on Nibbana. We won't go into detail here. And manifestation, it manifests as signless. Signless. Nibbana has no attributes. Signless, no attribute, nothing. Cessation. Totally, mind and matter ceased to exist. So basically, to put it in a different way, what is Nibbana? Nibbana is the total extinction of craving, the Tanha. Or you can say removing of Tanha, total removal of Tanha. Or forsaking the Tanha craving, discarding the craving Tanha. Freedom from craving. That's Nibbana. There's no attachment towards that craving. That's Nibbana. So, and here we stress the word craving. When there's craving, there's suffering. When the craving stopped, ceased, disappear, suffering disappear, and that is Nibbana. The third noble truth. And the fourth one is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Okay, the Buddha taught us there's a suffering. He taught us what's the cause. And he taught us there's the way to, there's the end to the suffering, that also condition exists. And now he taught us how to attain or achieve or realize that cessation. That is the fourth noble truth, the path leading to the cessation of suffering. But we all commonly known as the Noble Eightfold Path. Noble Eightfold Path. Or some people call it the middle way. Basically, it is what we are practicing. Satipatthana, Vipassana, Noble Eightfold Path. We are practicing mindfulness insight to achieve perfection of this Noble Eightfold Path, the middle way. In Pali, it's called Dukkha, Nirodha, Gamini, Patipada. Dukkha, Nirodha, Gamini, Patipada. So, Patipada, we heard that quite often. It can be translated as the way or the path or the practice. That's Patipada. Practice, Patipada. Way, path, Patipada. Gamani, leads to or leading to. Dukkha Nirodha, cessation of suffering. So this truth, the fourth noble truth, takes cessation of suffering. What is cessation of suffering? In other words, Nibbana. This truth takes cessation of suffering or Nibbana. This truth takes Nibbana as an object, okay, as its objects to practice when that condition arises. So when people have the perfection of this Eightfold Noble Path, you realize Nibbana. At that moment, meditator take Nibbana as an object. As long as you're alive, as long as there's a consciousness, the consciousness has to have an object. And in here, Nibbana is the object. So what's the characteristics of this Eightfold Noble Path? In one word, the characteristic is offering. What does it offer? Offer cessation of suffering. This Eightfold Path offer cessation of suffering. Or you can say this Eightfold Path offers means or ways to escape from suffering. It offers means or ways to escape from suffering. That's the characteristic. And the function is to attain or to achieve path consciousness. Megha Citta, path consciousness, with perfect 8 factors. You can only achieve this path consciousness if you have a perfect 8 factors, and if you have a perfect 8 factors in balance, you achieve path consciousness. And abandon kilesa. Once you got path consciousness, you have abandoned kilesa. They're all happening at the same time, arising together. Path consciousness, perfect 8 factors, abandonment of kilesa. They are all instantly happening together. Different processes, but they are happening at the same time. Manifestation, how does it manifest? Okay. Of course, you are practicing, we are practicing, meditators, yogis. It manifests to the yogis as release from the rounds of rebirth. If you have this, attain the path, Megha, Rahata Megha, you will never be reborn, which means release from the rounds of rebirth. Or, in other words, if you know the word Vipaka Vutta, we have talked about it before. Rounds of resultant. It manifests as total abandonments of rounds of resultant. No more Vipaka Vutta. That's how it manifests. So that is the 4th Noble Truth, or Eightfold Noble Path. So we said we always use the word enlighten. What's enlightenment? Enlightenment is one realized or understand the full Noble Truth. One realized, the key word is realize, and understand the full Noble Truth as it is, according to the reality. Okay, not what you think, what you imagine, as it is, according to the reality, gained through the practice of the Eightfold Noble Path. If you understand the Four Noble Truth through the practice of this Four Noble Path, and if you have penetrated into their reality, that is enlightenment. So this much, a little bit of practical approach and a lot of theory or scriptural explanation of the Four Noble Truth. So in practice, what do we do? Practical. Let's go what Dukkha Sisa. Dukkha Sisa is what? Basically, everything and anything and everything. Anything and everything, that is Dukkha. We have go through. So everything and anything in a person who is practicing, it is basically Nama and Rupa, which means your body and your mind. That is everything to a practitioner, to a yogi. So anything and everything that is arising within your body and within your mind, that is arising in you, arising in self, okay, that is unsatisfactory. That's what dukkha is. For a practitioner, from the practical approach, you must look at it this way. What is dukkha sissa? What is the first noble truth? The noble truth of suffering. That is anything and everything that is arising in my body and in my mind at all time is that first noble truth. That's the way one need to understand. That's a practically, that would be very sufficient to understand it. So whatever it arises, you observe, you observe. There might be a pain, you observe. There might be a happiness, you observe. There might be anger, you observe. You know, observe me, you know. Pain, you know. Sorrow, you know. Happiness, you know. Anger, you know. But noting, okay, there's a little slight difference. Even though you know the pain and this and that and everything, mentally and physically, everything that is arising, you must note them as this is dukkha sissa, noble truth of suffering. In other words, the labeling is different because it's a conceptual word, dukkha sissa is. What we are doing is we are trying to connect the conceptual word, the way we understand through scripture, through lectures and your experience. Pain, oh, this is suffering. Happiness, this is suffering. Concentration, this is suffering. Here's the one funny thing. Mindfulness, this is suffering. Dukkha sissa, everything. So one must note with a sense of reflection, a little bit of reflection, because as soon as you use the conceptual word which covers the whole process, there's a certain degree of reflection involved. Dukkha sissa, everything that's arising in your mind and body, you look as dukkha, 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 dukkha. That's it. That's how to observe dukkha sissa. Samudaya sissa, second noble truth. How would you deal with in practice on a practical sense? Anything that is arising, anything that is arising in you, which is associated with wanting, wishing, clinging, grasping, attachment, anything that associated with those things. Repeat again. Wanting, wishing, clinging, grasping, attachment. These are all the cause of suffering. In other words, samudaya sissa. So whenever these mental state arises, wanting, wishing, grasping, and so on, you note it as a samudaya sissa. This is the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering. Or you can say simply tanha, craving, 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 craving. Wanting is a craving, wishing is a craving, grasping also a craving, because everything starts from craving. It grows bigger and become grasping and clinging, but craving. So you can just say craving, 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 everything. That's the second noble truth. With a sense of reflection, samudaya sissa. So in here, we talk about two noble truths. Now, need to understand a little bit more here. We will call it lokiya dhamma. Lokiya dhamma is the mundane mundane Dhamma. Mundane Dhamma. Anything that is mundane, anything that is physicality and mentality, physical process and mental process, they are called mundane Dhamma or Lokiya Dhamma. And all these Lokiya Dhammas are observable. In other words, you can observe as an object of your meditation. Or also you can reflect on these observable objects, reflectable objects. All these mundane Dhammas are. In other words, mind and matter. So, the first two noble truths, Dukkha Sissa and Samudaya Sissa, they are observable objects. You can observe in your meditation the first two noble truths. And these are presented not on a specific basis, they are presented as in a process or a phenomenon or a behavior or a manner. You have to move on a collective basis, you have to see it on a collective basis, as a process, as a phenomenon. That's why we said you need to be skillful, and this part is for the more experienced advanced yogi. And you must note them at the moment of arising. In other words, always at the present moment. That's Lokiya Dhamma. And Lokuttara Dhamma is ultra mundane or beyond the mundane. Beyond the mundane. Lokuttara Dhamma. So Lokuttara Dhamma is the third and the fourth noble truth is called Lokuttara Dhamma. Okay. Nirodha Sissa and Megha Sissa. So in other words, path, Megha, fruition, Phala, Nibbana, cessation of suffering. Those three are Lokuttara, ultra mundane Dhamma. And these ultra mundane Dhamma doesn't fall under the domain of Sankhara Dhamma. Sankhara. They are not under Sankhara Dhamma. And in the scripture, this path, fruition, and Nibbana are not indicated as observable object or reflective object. They don't fall under the observable object or reflective object. So the third noble truth and fourth noble truth are not observable object. And in here, one need to understand, we are practicing the Eightfold Noble Path and we can't observe it. What does it mean? It's contradicting. No. We can practice each and every constituents, 8 constitution of the Eightfold Noble Path. We are on a training ground. We are training. We don't have it yet. And only when you have the perfection of the 8, only then it is called the Noble Eightfold Path. Till you got to the perfection, you don't have it. You cannot call it the path leading or the Noble Eightfold Path or the middle way. And it is perfection that is Lokuttara Dhamma. When you are practicing, you are trying to attain, to achieve that perfection. One need to do as such. So that gives you a very good fundamental understanding of, theoretical understanding of the the Four Noble Truths. And also in practice, how to observe it or reflect it. In this Dhamma Vipassana, reflection comes to a certain degree of the part of the process. May all of you be able to practice Satipatthana Vipassana meditation, and may you be able to realize the full noble truth as soon as possible.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much.